This is the SETN Podcast with Chris Goforth and Chandler Morrison, covering high school football in Chattanooga and the Southeast Tennessee area. The SETN Podcast.
Welcome in this week to SETN Preps. I'm Chris Goforth. He is Chandler Morrison, and we come to you twice a week with SETN Preps. It's our podcast that focuses on high school football in Southeast Tennessee. You can find us on Twitter at SETN Preps. Thank you to all of you that since the season has started that have started following us on Twitter. We enjoy hearing from you on Twitter, and we do our best every Friday night, or in the case of this week, Thursday night, and maybe some Saturday night too, of trying to pass along some of the information and some of the scores and games going on around the area. So if you want to get your Friday night football scoreboard, find us at SETN Preps on Twitter. You can find Chandler at Sports Chandler. You can find me at Chris Goforth 1. Make sure you like us on Facebook, subscribe, rate, and review our podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, TuneIn, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Anchor.fm. We are at all those places. Subscribe, rate, review where you can. We appreciate your 5-star ratings. It just helps us grow this podcast. We're also on YouTube now. How about that? We're on Instagram because Chandler and I are exactly what you go to Instagram for. We are the new Instagram models. And you can also find us, our website is setnpreps.com, where you can get scores. You find the scoreboard on Friday night. You can find schedules for your team. So we have all of that, and it's all there at setnpreps.com. So, Chandler, we got another Friday night in the books. I want to point out now, we're 2 weeks into this, and knock on wood, everything's been fine so far, right? I haven't heard of any issues anywhere. I haven't, all the kids, as far as I know, everybody's been, for the most part, been pretty healthy and been safe. And so I think, kudos to everybody from fans, parents, students, coaches, everybody for doing their part to get us as we're headed into week 3.
Yeah, and Chris, I think that even you're seeing a lot of mix in how people are doing their games, how they're, incorporating the mask, or everybody's got to take a temperature check, incorporate the mask, incorporating social distancing. And there's varying degrees of that depending on where you are, Chris. And I think it's interesting to see that we're not really seeing a spike from high school football so far, knock on wood, like we talked about.
Right.
And we still see varying degrees of what's going on as far as how people are adapting. So I think when you look at this, we're going to say this. Now, listen, this don't mean that we agree with everything the TSSAA does, but I think the TSSAA got something right here, Chris, when they made a decision. Do you think we'll ever say that again, Chris?
Maybe not, but one can hope, right? No, I kid, but
yeah, of course.
But yeah, I think the TSSAA, I think this has gone well. And as you and I spoke about, Chandler, way back during the summer, look, there's going to be some varying degrees as we go throughout this season, because there are certain places in our state that is much more, that's suffering a lot more from this pandemic than there is from other places. So if you go into, as you've noted here, if you go into a lot of the rural communities outside the major metropolitan areas, you're probably not going to see as many masks. You may not see as much social distancing as you do in a larger area, like maybe some of the schools in Chattanooga proper, or, certainly in Knoxville and Nashville and Memphis. And I know you've got, as we like to lead things off with a little news and notes today, you've got some stuff on what's going on with the Nashville Metro school system.
Yeah, let's break this down to the timeline real quick, Chris. So early in the week, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, the health department for Metro Nashville said they recommended that play not be resumed in any fall sports or be postponed, and no fall sports at all until after October 4th, which October 4th is the day that schools are supposed to come back from virtual in Nashville, in that Nashville metro area. This is the Metro Nashville school district is what this is. I think they said, it was roughly 86,000 kids they're accounting for in that district. The Metro director comes out on Tuesday and says, after already saying the original deadline was Labor Day, a while back, they came out and said that there's going to be no sports indefinitely. So
Wow.
that is a shock to a lot of people. And I think the reason that is because, yes, they're supposed to come back from virtual on October 4th. Who's to say they do actually come back, one? Two, they would phase in, starting with the younger grades, so starting with K through 2 and then moving their way up the chain. High school would be last on that list as far as how they would phase kids coming back. So you're talking about 2-3 weeks now that you're phasing in. And I'm not sure what the practice situation is right now for football in Nashville. I haven't heard anything on that. I'm sure that there may be practices going on possibly, but as far as competition, like sports are postponed indefinitely now in the Metro Nashville area. And me and you talked about this the other day where I don't know what kind of impact that's going to have on Chattanooga, at least until deep in the playoffs. And I feel like in most classifications, the teams in Metro Nashville area are not going to be too much of a hindrance. Now, this is like inside Davidson County. This is where this
Right.
school district is. So it's not including like Murfreesboro or any of the ones around that are playing,
Right.
So really, unless someone came out, and what county is Alcoa and Maryville and Greenback all in? Unless someone came out, I mean,
right.
I don't think that would affect us
Right.
unless something were to come out about the Knoxville area schools, because I think I don't know that if they postpone that in that Alcoa, Maryville, what is that county? I can't remember what the county is right there, but it's all in one county there. Those two schools are. That I think everybody around the state, that would affect the entire landscape of high school football. But Metro Nashville, I'm not so sure.
If you look at the way the playoff brackets, what normally happens is Chattanooga and Knoxville are kind of together.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of that bracket, it's the Nashville and the Memphis schools are kind of on the west side of the bracket. So that's kind of how the breakdown between that's kind of how the state breaks down normally. So you're right. Most of the time, our schools here come playoff time will be matched up against teams from the Knoxville area. Now, for the Baylors and the Macauleys, the private schools in our area who do play some schools from the Nashville area, they're playing private schools that aren't affected by this ruling in Nashville. So I think in terms of what it means to our teams here in Southeast Tennessee, I think it's very negligible, and it may not mean anything at all going through the course of this season. So I think it's something worth noting. Certainly, we try to stay up and we try to talk about here what's going on around high school football all across the state and all across the country as far as that goes, as we hear, about different stories from around the area or from around the country. But, I don't think this is one that's going to cause a big problem for our local teams. I think everybody's going to be fine. Chandler, an unfortunate situation in the Bradley Central Walker Valley game on Thursday night. We're going to get to the game and how it played out on the field. It was a great game. Walker Valley jumped out to the big lead. Bradley had to come back to get the win. During that game, the broadcaster, a gentleman that I do not know, but and I know a lot of those guys from around the area just from doing this for so many years, but I don't know this gentleman. But he said some things about a kid he was having trouble pronouncing, the young man from Walker Valley was having trouble pronouncing his name, and he said some things that he should not have. Kudos to the Bradley County Schools and to the radio station there, 101.3 The Buzz up in Cleveland. Steve Hartline, the owner of that station, good guy. I've known Steve a long time. He's a very good guy. They reacted quickly to this. If you want to find it, look, if you go look on Twitter, it's been tweeted, it's been everywhere. You can find it. We're not going to get too deep into it. You can find the letter of the joint statement that was released by both the Bradley County School System and 101.3 The Buzz that was released on Friday. We have that. You can find it on our Twitter feed. If you just go to @SETN Preps on Twitter, you can find it there. And Chandler, I hate it. I hate it for what happened to this guy. But also, and more importantly, I hate it for the young man to have to be subjected do this. I hate it for his family to have to go through this. It's not right. It's really unfortunate. I hope there is a way that, I hope there's an apology coming, and I hope it's a heartfelt apology, because there is no place for this in our world today.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. I think there should be a sincere apology. And if there is, I think that you can say, listen, we're going to give you a little bit of punishment for this, suspension, whatever. But ultimately, I think this dude, like you said, what he did was wrong, but that doesn't mean that his career should be ended or his presence should be ended just because he said one wrong thing.
By all means, Chandler, he has been at, or by what I know, he's done Bradley Central's games for a long time. He's done a good job. He's cheerleaded and supported their kids through his efforts there, and there's something to be said for that. So I agree with you. I hate for somebody who seemingly has done a lot of good work for a long time to see it get tossed out just on one misstep. If, in fact, it is the one misstep. It's the only one we know about. How about that? And so I'm going to roll with that I hate to see that happen to somebody, because, it's just, I could not imagine. I couldn't imagine being one. I couldn't imagine being in the broadcaster's shoes and have this happen. But I tell you what, as a dad, I couldn't imagine being the parent of a kid and having to deal with something like that for your kid, because the kids shouldn't have to. Life in this world is tough enough right now. We shouldn't have to deal with other stuff. There's just no point in it. And I hope that one day everything can be patched up and moved on. But as we've seen, Tom Brenneman, the announcer of the Reds, who made a slur when he didn't realize the microphone was on before a Reds game, and he's been suspended by the Reds. And then Fox Television, where he's done NFL games for 25 years, just gave him the boot. So there are some consequences to the actions that we take. And so I always try to teach my kids, for every action, there is a reaction. And for every decision you make, there is a consequence. You just got to be, make sure you're making the right decision. And at the same time, when you don't make the right decision, you've got to face whatever that punishment may be.
Yeah, and here's the thing: we can only go on the information we got. We don't know, like you said, we don't know that guy from Adam really. We just know that he's been there for a while, and we're going off the information we have, and we're making these decisions, or we're making these comments that we're making, and the commentary that we have. And I think it's very important, as what he did was wrong, right? And we talked about that. I think it's just very important that he does get a second chance, because I think, and me and you, Chris, have been very big proponents of that on this show, to give everybody a second chance. And, I think that's what should be given, with a sincere apology to not only the schools, not only the radio, but to the player and to his family for what he said on air. And there's a big difference between what you say on air and what you say in private. And, it's like we always say, a mic is always lied till proven otherwise. So
let's move on to some games, can we?
Yeah, let's move on to this game in particular, Chris.
Yeah, let's start. Let's go Bradley Central, Walker Valley. Bradley wins it 37-34. Biggest news of the high school football season so far is the fact that Bradley has lost Javin Burke, their quarterback. You go back, 3-4 months ago? Bradley Central thought they would have a D1 commitment at quarterback in Javin Burke. They thought they would have a Division I commitment at wide receiver in Trey Curry. Now here we are. We're 2 weeks into the season, and they have neither one of those two guys right now. That's tough. That is not what anybody thought about it. Javin Burke went down with an injury last week against Farragut and was tough. Now, Aiden McCleary, who stepped in and took his place, looked really good. 221 yards passing. So it's not like Bradley doesn't have players, right? I mean, they got guys. They've also got a freshman running back. He may be the next guy there, named Jackson Wilson, who had 88 yards and 4 touchdowns. Walker Valley jumped out to a 21-0 lead. They just couldn't hold on. This speaks, again, to something you and I talked a little bit about going back to last year about Walker Valley and Drew Akins coming in there as a head coach. He's changed things, and I think this is one of those games that kind of sends a message to everybody about, man, Walker Valley's coming. They're not there yet, but they're coming, and I think they saw that with the way they played, especially early in this game on Friday.
Yeah, this is a big step forward for Walker Valley, and here's the thing: it was a wild game. It came down to the missed field goal kick there right at the end that Walker Valley wasn't able to convert on. You know, it's kind of heartbreaking for Walker Valley to get that kind of lead, and then you realize that oh crap, we're in a game with Bradley Central, and now we had to fight for every play, you know. And I want to know what that locker room conversation was like at halftime for Bradley Central and trying to get those adjustments made, because they did one heck of a job. You know, they have the backup quarterback coming in, stepping in. They still have a lot of athletes out there on the field, a lot of maybe Saturday players there for Bradley Central outside of, you know, Javen Burke. You know, you talked about the loss of the quarterback and the wide receiver who were D1 prospects there and D1 commits. They still did one heck of a job seeing that their quarterback was down. You know, when your quarterback goes down like that, especially a quarterback that you thought you were going to have and you've been working all summer with, maybe that number 2 guy hadn't got the number of reps that this number 1 guy has, and then you go into practice, and with 1 week of practice, you're still competitive with Walker Valley. And who knows if Javen Burke was in this game, maybe Walker Valley still would have had the same kind of run they did, because I think it came down to the defense for Bradley Central just not being able to get going early and stopping that Walker Valley offense. So, you know, this is a game that ended up, I think Jackson Wilson ended up with 4 touchdowns in that game. I mean,
yeah,
guys stepping up all over the field for Bradley Central. I think if there's a team in our area that could say next man up, it's definitely Bradley Central.
And it was Javin Burke that went down with an injury. His brother Javon Burke is still there. And so, again, don't feel too sorry for Damon Floyd in Bradley Central now. He's still got plenty of guys there. They've still got plenty of talent.
He'll get well soon for Damon Floyd. Right?
Well, not from any of his opponents, I can guarantee you that. But again, he's got good players there. They got some real good players. So it will be interesting though to see them as they progress through this, because you know back in the summer we were worrying, okay, maybe they're not Maryville good, but can they be that number 2 team, and can they push Maryville a little bit this year? I don't know. We'll see. I think it's really tough when you lose 2 guys that I thought were 2 of the best guys at their position. You know, one you lost back in the summer, and the other guy you lose in really week 1 of the season. So, and then you got to go 9 games without him in the regular season. So we'll kind of see how this one works out. Let's go to Red Bank and Ooltewah now. This was a game that I saw. It was our game on the CW Chattanooga. That game was actually played on Thursday night. It aired on TV, though, Friday night.
How do you like the delay? How do you like that as a broadcaster?
I don't know. It was okay. You know what I liked about it? I liked about it that we did not have the TV timeouts.
Oh,
so
okay.
We didn't have to wait. That's right. All we did, I guess somebody hit, you know, I said they hit pause on the VCR, and then when the play was ready to resume, somebody hit record again. And so we just kept going. And so that aspect of it, I like. It made for a short evening. I got home, you know, before 11 o'clock on Friday night, and that doesn't happen too often. So I like that part of it. There was also a weather delay, started the second quarter. There was some lightning. The field was cleared, and we had to wait 30 minutes before they could play. But here's what I can tell you about this game. Red Bank defensively, and if you watched it on TV Friday night, or if you were there Thursday night, you know what I'm talking about. Red Bank defensively, I think, is really, really good. They're fantastic at every level of that defense. I think, you know, Chris Brown said in his post-game comments about how well he thought his secondary had played. And they've got guys back there that can run. They've got a defensive line that's those 4 guys are as good as anybody I think I've ever seen in high school football collectively. And the linebacking core with Silas Garibay and A.D. Crutcher is really good. They're active. They're guys that can run. They're fast. They've got guys at Red Bank on the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, I think maybe there's still a little bit of a work in progress, and that sounds really silly for me to say when I'm talking about a team that has scored 72 points through their first 2 games. Yeah, I mean, they're hammering people. Ooltewah, they've got 5 new linemen up front on offense, and I thought that showed. Fisher Perry, heck of an athlete at quarterback. He tried to will them to as much success as he could on Thursday night. He's a heck of a player. They've just got to find a way in passing situations, give him some more protection. They run a lot of 5-wide empty backfield stuff, and you put him back there and you ask those offensive linemen to block one-on-one, it was going to be trouble for him. They've got to be able to find Fisher Perry a little bit of help up front to allow him to be able to operate, because he is a good athlete. I mean, he was all region wide receiver as a sophomore there. They had to move him to quarterback last year, and he's back playing quarterback again this year. But he's a tremendous athlete. They just got to get him some help.
Yeah, Chris, all this game did for him is make me, and seeing that East Ham side Daisy score too, is making me so much more excited for that East Ham Red Bank matchup. And we talked, and listen, this is going to be one of those moments where we say, I told you so, because we told you in that schedule special, you can go back, you can watch it, you can see that we're not telling you a fib here. We told you that East Ham Red Bank game was going to be a very underrated matchup, but when it got to it, it was probably going to be the matchup of the week. I don't think there are two hotter teams right now than East Ham and Red Bank right now. Do you think, Chris?
No, I think they both come out like a house of fire. And I think it's a tremendous test, for both sides. I think the idea of that East Hamilton offense going up against that Red Bank defense right now is, man, that's a game you'd pay money to go watch.
Yeah, we'll see that one here in two weeks, I believe.
Yep.
Red Bank has Signal Mountain next week, so it'll be East Hamilton the week after that. And I thought this game it wasn't really a shock, but it was surprising in the fact that I think we expected Red Bank to win this one and maybe not be a close game. I don't think we expected them to win this big. But then when you look at the fact that the Ooltewah offense last week was not able, the week before last, in week one, was not able to kind of get that offense rolling very much. And then you look at the fact that this Red Bank offense is as stacked as, I mean, it's almost as stacked as like a Miami defense in the early 2000s, late 1990s. I mean, can we make a documentary called the Bank? Is that what we can call it? The Bank will have 3 parts, Chris. Is that how it works? Or
you may be onto something, Chandler. You may be onto your first 30 for 30 documentary, but
423 to 423 for 423, right?
That's it. But I mean, these guys are good, man. I mean, look, I think collectively they're as good of a group, and I thought they were good last year. Still, I said it Thursday night during the broadcast, and I think I've said it on here before, and I'll say it again. I think this Red Bank team is better than the team was last year. And as soon as there's a little something missing for them offensively, I don't know exactly what it is. I can't quite put my finger on it. I bet if we got Chris Brown in here, he could tell you what the situation is with them and what he thinks is missing. But as soon as they solve that riddle, as soon as that offense clicks, they're having success, but they're not really clicking at times. As soon as it clicks for them, look out, because they are going to be something. You talk about the game against East Hamilton, they've still got South Pittsburgh coming up. I mean, I think there's some really good football left to be played for Red Bank. I'm excited to follow. We're going to talk about Red Bank pretty much every week. I think they're that good, and they've got a ridiculously tough schedule. So they get Signal Mountain this week.
Question for you, Chris, real quick.
Yep.
Do you think that Red Bank, what we've seen from Red Bank, when they get it clicking, they will be Alcoa caliber, as we've seen the Alcoa score? Do you think they'll be up to that? Right now, if you had to look forward and you say if they get it clicking the way I think they should get it clicking, do you think they'll be Alcoa ready?
I think so. Based off that defense. I don't think anybody over the course of this year is going to be able to blow Red Bank out. I think they'll be able to stay in every game because they're so athletic and they're so talented on the defensive side of the ball. They're going to stay in things. They got too many guys that can run. And in high school football, when you've got some speed and you've got guys that aren't afraid to hit you, it's a lethal combination defensively. And I think because of that, Red Bank will be able to stay in a lot of games this year. Let's move on. Let's go to our next game, Chandler. Let's talk about the game you were at. That's Marion County and Sequatchie County. Told you last week, Chandler and I, we do a new thing here called our Friday night reveal, where at the end of this podcast, we're going to tell you what was revealed to us on Friday night from this past week. I told you then I thought Marion County was an improved football team. I said that here last week, and they are. I think they're a playoff team. I think they're a team that can go to the playoffs and win a game.
Or two.
They've got to get some things fixed defensively. And I know they had the great defensive stand there that kind of preserved the win over Sequatchie County. But there's some issues defensively that I think they're going to have to fix. If you're talking about South Pittsburgh and you're talking about Tyner and you're talking about those other 2A teams once you get into the playoffs, there's some things defensively that's going to have to be addressed. And I think they will. Don't get me wrong. I think Dale Pruitt's going to find a way. He's too good of a coach. They'll find a way as they go through the season to be able to fix some of these issues defensively. They're going to be 3-0 going into the game against South Pittsburgh. I think that is going to be how you going to social distance people at that game with South Pittsburgh 3-0 and Marion County's 3-0. Good luck. I want to see the person walking around with the 6-foot measuring stick keeping people separated, because that ain't going to happen. I think that's going to be an absolute whale of a game between two good football teams. Marion County still, though, you got to tighten up a little bit defensively, but I think they've got a chance to be, again, like I said a couple of weeks ago, this isn't state championship good, but this is definitely get into the playoffs and make a run sort of good.
And that's what you need. You need those steps up. For Marion County, I think that they took that step Friday night. It was a great finish. You talk about the 2-point conversion. They weren't able to convert it into 3 minutes for Sequatchie County, wasn't, and Marion County made that stop. I think it shows that Marion County is ready to pull out those close games when it comes down to it. I think you don't want to get Marion County to the fourth quarter, because if you do, there's going to be trouble, and it's going to be a dogfight. I think that's what's going to be the difference for them this season, is that they're going to be able to play tight games and win those tight games and not be scared at the end of those tight games, or not be worried and letting all that anxiety come in and then you've dropped it. I said in our preview episode, our last episode, whoever wins this game will win it in the air. I don't think either team really won this game in the air. It was a very well-run game, like a very good running game, I should say. And to me, Sequatchie County was able to throw it a little bit. They just weren't able to throw it when they needed to. They were able to catch somebody off guard with a throw, but here's the thing, that 2-point conversion, that stop, what we saw there was, I think everybody in the stadium knew where that ball was going. And I think that ultimately shows that, this game came down to a play that everybody knew what was going to happen and you still couldn't convert. And I think that shows that, I don't know if it shows more about the Sequatchie County offense not being quite there yet and not being able to improvise a little bit, or it shows more about the Marion County defense to say, we know where this ball's going. All right, let's build a stone wall and keep it going.
Well, I don't know who number 11 is for Marion County, but I saw the video of it, and he absolutely just the left end. He just absolutely blew his man up, and he was in the backfield literally as soon as the ball carrier got the football, and just, he just put an end to it right there. Tremendous individual effort by that young man.
Yeah, and to me, that game came down to that play, and even though Marion County came back and scored, Sequatchie County made the mistakes in this game. Marion County didn't. Sequatchie County had the fumbles. Sequatchie County, they did get an interception, but Sequatchie County also missed the kick on a PAT. And I don't know whether that was as much a mistake as it was their kicker is a new kicker, so you don't know what to expect from him on PATs. But I think when it came down to it, it was the fact that Sequatchie County just made those mistakes down the stretch, and that's what cost them this game, was the small mistakes. And any coach will tell you they hate the small mistakes. They would rather have you make a big mistake 100 miles an hour than a small mistake at 50, because you make the small mistakes, that's what can cost you the game.
All right, let's move on. Let's go Meigs County and Greenback. Meigs County, as someone told me on Facebook, they came out and punched Greenback in the face. Meigs County was dominant. Yeah, that's a direct quote. Meigs they were dominant in this game. Right from the start, this game was never, ever close. 38-0 was the final. First off, how often does a Greenback team, and don't give me no talk about, well, they're rebuilding. Please, it's still Greenback.
Yeah.
How often does Greenback get mercy ruled? That doesn't happen.
No.
And we had wondered how Meigs would be able to roll offensively without Aaron Swafford as the quarterback. I think they've done pretty well. Their quarterback in Logan Carroll, he's been steady, if not spectacular at times. 7 out of 10 passing for 148 yards for him. Meigs County's defense allowed Greenback just 18 yards on 25 carries. I'm not surprised that Meigs County won this game. What I was surprised about is the margin of victory. I thought they would win. I thought they might even win it by 2 touchdowns, maybe even 3 touchdowns. But I didn't expect them to win it by 38 points. That's a good win by Meigs County, no matter how you want to slice it.
I think the surprising thing about this is the goose egg. I mean, let's just be honest here. I mean, you could score as many points as you want if you're Meigs County, but to hold that Greenback offense to – I know they've lost a lot, and we talked about that last week, but to hold that offense to 0, that's the most important thing in this. You know, I'm not sure who this says more about. I don't know if this says that Greenback is nowhere near where they should be, although we knew they weren't going to be where they were, or if it says more about Meigs County being more than we thought they were. So either way, expectations are very high or very low for one of these teams based on this game, and maybe just both. I mean, at the end of the day, it could just be that Meigs County is way better, and Greenback is not at all what we thought they were going to be. Excuse me. Regardless, I think Meigs County pulled out all the stops. This was on the road in a hostile environment, and Jason Fitzgerald, he had those players ready to play. And of course, we talked to him earlier before the season about all the things they were doing to get ready. You can go check that out in the coach interviews we did over the summer. But golly, he had those players ready to play from day one. And it's just impressive to see that score 38-0 against the Greenback team. I don't think we're going to see that for a while.
No, I can't remember a time. I'm sure it's happened before, but man, I can't remember a time they've been beaten that soundly. Final game we'll talk about from this past Friday night. I guess I should say this past weekend, really, Thursday through Saturday. Bledsoe County defeats East Ridge 21-14. I thought it was a nice win for Bledsoe County against an athletic 4A team. 4 turnovers for the Warriors, and they still found a way to be able to get it done. It all came back down to 2 guys for Bledsoe County. That's Harmon Keith, who we've talked about a lot, going back to when he was a freshman. Here on SETN Preps, and also Cadillac Sevier, Cadillac Sevier, who was, I mean, those guys were good. Cadillac had a rushing touchdown, returned a fumble, 84 yards for a touchdown, and returned a kickoff, 66 yards for a touchdown in that game.
Yeah, this one went the way I thought it would. I thought it would be a close game. I didn't expect as many turnovers, but I thought this would be a close game down the stretch. I thought East Ridge might be able to sneak by in this one when we talked in our last episode. But Bledsoe County just went on the road and did what Bledsoe County is supposed to do. And I think Bledsoe County is now ready for that region slate, and we can confidently say that, hey, they are ready to play whoever comes up against them in that region. I don't know if they'll win that region, but all we know now is that region is going to be a 3-headed monster with Tyner, Marion County, and Bledsoe County. Those are going to be your top 3 most likely. And I think it's going to be a tough region for anybody else to try to even get their head in for a home playoff game.
Well, you know what the matchup is this week, don't you? It's Tyner, Bledsoe County.
Yep.
That's this week. Tyner has won 14 straight region games going into that game. So I don't know exactly what all games we'll be talking about yet on our preview podcast that'll come out on Thursday. I can pretty much guarantee you that's going to be one of them, though. Yeah. Chandler, it's time for our Friday night reveal. This is where you and I kind of talk about the things that were revealed to us on Friday night and some of the things that we saw. I've already hit on a couple of mine, so I'm going to go first because I'm going to be real quick. First off, don't feel sorry for Bradley Central. They still got some guys. Aiden McClary played extremely well.
Bradley Central, my Lord.
No, they're too loaded. We talked about back during the summer how good they were with all the prospects they had. I still think they're going to be okay. Even the fact they've lost 2 Division I commitments, I still think Bradley Central's a good football team. I still think they're going to win a lot of games by the time the season's over. And we need to be talking more about Cadillac Severe at Bledsoe County. Offense, defense, special teams. If he keeps playing the way he's playing, and I think it's important, Bledsoe's got to win some games, okay? You can't, it's not like Paul Hornung in the Heisman Trophy beating Johnny Majors when Notre Dame was 2-8 that year. Bledsoe needs to win some games, but the start that kid is off to, if he can keep it rolling, Chandler, I think you got to start talking about him as a Mr. Football candidate.
Yeah.
Based on the way he's playing and what he means to Bledsoe County. And then finally, we didn't talk about this game, but Tyner with an impressive win over Central on Friday night. Jeremiah Sawyer, he's one of the Times Free Press Dynamite Dozens, 4 touchdowns and 160. I had to check the number to make sure I wrote it down. 167 yards rushing for Jeremiah Sawyer. Bledsoe County, Tyner. We'll see Cadillac against Jeremiah Sawyer. That's going to be it's going to be a fun game Friday night.
Yeah, it definitely is, Chris. And to go off that Central Tyner game, I've got Central in here. Central is not what we thought they would be. I don't think we expected them to.
Still think they're too young.
I do too, and I think they had that experienced youth. But let me tell you something. I think we'll probably be talking more about Central next year than we do this year. Not because I don't think they won't I think they'll make some statements this year, but I don't think it's going to be enough to warrant I think they'll get the playoff. I think those things, but I don't think it's going to be enough to warrant our talk until maybe next year, just because of the youth, not having anything to do with how good this team is. But listen, at the time, it's all going to come down to time and next year and who's good, who's not, who's coming in, who's coming out of the region, all those kind of things. And Central is not where I thought they would be, but I do think we'll still be talking about them down the road, if not toward the end of this year when they start to step it up and that youth finally starts to hit its stride. Brainerd, I think, is on the upswing, and this is going to be a hot take. Maybe you don't know where to go with this one. We talked about this earlier. I don't know what Brainerd was doing in the offseason, but they've really stepped it up. Last season, Howard took this win. This same game in week 2 last season, Howard beat them 34-6, okay? This year, Brainerd was on the other side of the blowout, 30-13. That is a dramatic change for a team that went 1-9 last year. They have already surpassed their win total from last year, Chris, and we're 2 games into this season. They may not be, win the region or anything like that because they're in there with Red Bank and those kind of things, but golly, the playoffs is definitely a real possibility for them, and I hope they keep making strides like they're making.
Well, that's a hotly contested rivalry now.
Yeah.
A lot of people know about the basketball rivalry between those two schools with Brainerd and Howard, but it gets pretty intense in football too. So congratulations to those guys over at Brainerd. That was a good win for them. Very good win.
It was. And the next thing I'm going to say is the Silverdale defense is legit. Okay, I don't know if you saw this Thursday night when they played Polk County, and yes, it is Polk County, a 2A team, and this is a Division II school. Nonetheless, Silverdale had 2 back-to-back defensive touchdowns. I think they had a punt block, and then 2 plays later they had a fumble that led to a touchdown. They definitely improved their defense, and I think this may be what elevates them to come in that uber-competitive region that they're in right now in Division II AA. The defense for Silverdale, I think, is just going to be the difference this year. And for them, say what you will about that division and how competitive it is, Silverdale has got to have something to be able to compete, and I think this defense may actually put them to that point and keep them in games.
Hey, congratulations to our buddy Mike Connor, too, the first-year head coach at Silverdale, friend of the podcast, for getting his first win as a head coach. So congratulations, Coach Connor, for getting that victory number 1 on Friday night. Well, Chandler, I think that's going to do it for us.
Sounds good.
All right, let's get out of here. We will see you again on Thursday. Make sure you join us then. Our podcast will drop Thursday. We'll be previewing Friday night's action. We'll highlight all the big games from Friday night, and we'll break it down for you, and you can catch that on Thursday wherever you download your podcast from. Until then, have a great week. So long, everybody.
This is the SETN Podcast with Chris Goforth and Chandler Morrison, covering high school football in Chattanooga and the Southeast Tennessee area. The SETN Podcast.